Hello, welcome to Message of Hope broadcast by Light of Hope Ministries. Today we are broadcasting from Grace Chapel. We are going to be teaching today on the power of our words. And that is found in our book, Understanding Emotional Healing. It's on page 166, The Power of Our Words. The words that we speak are constantly creating who we are and creating the environment around us. It's very important that we understand that what we speak creates. Because, even when in Genesis chapter 1, the world was created by God speaking. And then God created us in the same way. He made us in His image. And even today we can still see, maybe we can't form stars and things like that, but we definitely can form things by the words that we speak. We can create a negative attitude around us. We can create a positive attitude around us. We can speak positive into people's lives. We can criticize and condemn people and things like that. All that is very important, that we understand that the words that we speak are constantly creating something.
And one of the things is when people don't recognize who they are in Christ, they will speak things out of frustration and out of anger, not realizing that those words also form like a negative environment around them.
When we speak words of life, it produces an atmosphere of life around us, which is exactly what we want. Why wouldn't we do more of that? So, sometimes we have to just think about that. Why don't we do more of that? Why don't we speak life into each other more instead of finding fault and condemning and criticizing and I believe that sometimes it's so much that we're comparing ourselves with each other and trying to figure out who's better than the other one, instead of finding out what does God have for my life. Yeah. Because each one of us, each one of us has a calling in life. And if we all do our thing that God created us to do, it works together beautifully in a amazing way. But if we are constantly bickering with each other and disagreeing with each other and things like that, we can miss the beauty of working together and having the harmony of speaking what God shows us to speak.
And out of insecurity sometimes, or most times, out of insecurity we try to get people to see things our way. Instead of focusing on what does God want, and am I doing what God wants me to do? Are you doing what God wants you to do? We start saying, well, this is what I believe, so you have to believe that too.
And for those of you that are here this morning, you're welcome to ask some questions along the way if you want. If you have some questions, you're welcome to ask them. But when we speak curses of death, it produces an atmosphere of depression and loneliness. Let me give you an example of some curses of death. There's people that, they just want to die. They want to, why can't I just die and go to heaven? But they haven't fulfilled their calling here on earth yet. And
which is a rebellion to God's perfect plan. If He has a plan for us and we want to die and get out of here, then that's a rebellion to His perfect plan.
Yeah. And so that the depression and that loneliness comes over somebody and it holds them down. But if we are determined to do what God called us to do, then that lifts that depression, it lifts that loneliness off, and we start connecting to what does God have for us to do. So let's take a good look at what we're saying. If we say, I'm dying to get somewhere. Did you ever hear that? Somebody say, I'm dying to get somewhere?
That's sucking the life right.
Could it be that we're actually speaking a curse of death over our body? Could it be that this gives cancer permission to start killing us? Because we're speaking death. We're saying, I am dying. Right? What if some of those things are more important than we think? What if some of our problems are coming from some of the things we're saying And we don't even realize it because we've been tricked by the enemy and deceived into saying these things which we never really mean. What about this one? Someone says, I was at the restaurant and it took forever until I got my food. Did it really take forever? If it did, you still didn't get your food, right? If it took forever to get your food, but see what happens, here's the question. Why is this statement a problem? Because the Bible talks about what forever is. When we go to the restaurant and we say it takes forever to get our food and it was somewhere around 15 minutes, our brain will subconsciously start to calculate that forever is somewhere around 15 minutes. And then when you read the Bible and you read about something being forever, you're not thinking it in your conscious mind, but in your subconscious you've already programmed yourself to think or to believe that forever is somewhere around 15 minutes because that's how long it took you to get your food. This new program then operates in other areas, such as when we hear about hell being forever, our brain may calculate it to mean 15 minutes. This can subconsciously cause us to be desensitized to the consequences of sin. This can happen on a subconscious level that most people are not even aware of. Let's start speaking life and truth into our situations. Let's start speaking life and truth to each other.
Yeah.
Let's start speaking life and truth to the people around us instead of tearing down and criticizing them.
Well, one thing that we have learned, and we're still practicing this because it seems to be easier to criticize people than to encourage people. Because when we discern that something's wrong, you know, we tend to speak without thinking and speak words of death or criticize or condemn. But what we're practicing is, in every situation, there is something right or something wrong. And we can choose. We make a conscious choice to find the good. And so if we can find good, we can help people change by feeding their spirits, by speaking life. When we speak life, then we empower people to think life, to experience life, to even feel victorious. But if we constantly bicker and complain and murmur and cut down and criticize, then we kind of bring us almost like a spirit of despair or a spirit of condemnation on some people, and we can not only form our own atmosphere with negative, but we can actually project it on somebody else and create a negative atmosphere for our children, for our families, for the people around us. So this is very contagious. Very contagious what we speak and what we believe and what we project out of our being.
So let's make a conscious effort to watch the words that are coming out of our mouth. Are these words speaking life, or are they speaking curses over ourselves or others? What is coming out of our mouth?
Sometimes it's amazing if we actually take a step back and listen to ourselves, what we just said. Because what we have noticed is that when we're working with people, and especially angry people, when somebody gets angry, they start saying things that they didn't intend to say, that they don't even know they're saying, until they take a step back and they actually rehearse what they actually said. Because we have noticed that when people are really, really angry, and when they're done, spouting their row or whatever, if you ask them, now what did you just say? They usually don't know. So if anybody gets offended by somebody else's anger, it's a good chance that that person doesn't even know what he all said. So if we know these keys, now we don't have to be offended because we know that it's just the Spirit that's working through these people because of insecurity. And anger, it looks like the person's very tough and big, but anger is just a cover-up for somebody that feels like running and hiding.
So next is the power of submission. What is the power of submission? Submission means plugging into a power source. For example, submitting an extension cord into a receptacle in the wall. If there's power in the receptacle, we will have full power at the other end of the cord. And, you know, I'm not saying that it doesn't mean that we submit to each other in the form of over and under, but I really don't believe that's the picture that God is showing us when He says submit yourselves one to another. I believe it means respect each other and benefit from what each other has already learned in life. And when we respect each other, we can learn from each other and we can benefit from the mistakes that somebody else has made. Life is too short for us to all make our own mistakes.
Yes.
We want to learn from other people's mistakes and not make the same mistakes over and over again. When we submit to each other, we can actually learn from each other's mistakes. Somebody can say, hey, I wouldn't do that way. But if we can't submit to each other, then everybody has to basically go out and make their own mistakes.
To really submit to each other, we have to be teachable. And we have to be able to learn from each other because there's so much mistakes to be made that if we have to make them all ourselves, there's not enough a lifetime to overcome that. That's why it's so important that we convey and we relate and we release to the next generation what we have learned, because it's a little like this scenario that if we don't learn from each other, then we tend to burn the bridges. We tend to burn bridges instead of learning. If we make mistakes, we'll probably just start saying things and burn all kinds of bridges, and then they have to be rebuilt again. But if we're open to learn, if we make a mistake, we will go to somebody that has been through this before and learn from them. What works, what doesn't work, because the principles of God are absolute. If they work for one person, they work for another person. The principles of victory, the principles of life are absolute. And there's so much to learn from people that think they have nothing to give.
Yeah.
And if we keep that open mind, then we will learn nuggets that will take us further in life.
Yeah.
Because there's people that have walked through the valleys and things like that we don't have to walk through to that depth or to the length of time it took them. Maybe it took them 20 years to make that journey, and we could take it in 2 weeks if we sit under their teaching and we learn from that. And there's people that pour out to people they're mentoring, and those people that they're mentoring, they can learn these principles in a few weeks that took them 20 or 30 years to walk out. And it's not just a knowing it, but there's actually an authority that comes with submitting ourselves one to another, learning from each other, and everybody has a story. Everybody went through something, and if we can connect to each other and what each person went through, we can all have more authority in the spirit realm to go forward. Because if we just go there alone, then we have whatever we have. But if we go there together with other people and connect to their stories and connect to what they learned, we can go there with a lot more force and a lot more power and a lot more authority in the spirit realm.
Yeah. So if there's power in the receptacle, we have full power at the other end of the cord. We have just as much power at the other end of the cord as we have when we plug directly into the wall, don't we? In the extension cord. However, the cord has absolutely no power if it is not submitted into the receptacle. No power at all. So when we submit to God, we will have the power to resist the enemy, and the enemy will flee. Right? Submit to God, resist the devil, and he will flee. Jesus was submitted to God and told his disciples that he only does what he sees the Father doing. Is that how we do it? Do we only do what we see the Father doing?
Not always.
That's our goal, though, isn't it?
Yes.
When a man is submitted to Christ, God will give him a vision for his family. By submitting to that vision, he can lead with the full power and authority that God intended for his family. But only by submitting to that vision. So if you don't have a vision for your family, how can you have power in your family?
Yeah.
Because, you know, the vision is a part of this whole equation. When a wife submits to her husband and the vision that God gave him, she can plug into the power and authority that God intended for her to have. And this can be one of those things that people will disagree on, because, you know, with the women's lib movement and things like that, you know, where women have equal rights and stuff like that, they weren't all wrong in what they were saying, but there was a spirit that came with that, that actually it did not benefit the women.
Right.
It actually put women at a disadvantage because they started operating in a way that God never intended for them to operate in, and it just made their life harder. And, you know, since that, I mean, all kinds of stuff has gone wrong in the family. Divorces have just skyrocketed. There was all kinds of things that went with that, broken families, even abortions and things like that, that I believe was because they were out of the divine order that God had set up. I believe that when it's in the order that God actually designed it to function, everybody's happy. It doesn't put a woman in bondage, it sets her free. Because now she's operating the way God designed it to operate. It does not mean she becomes a doormat for somebody else's insecurities. It means that she can plug into God's original plan and purpose for her life and the life of her family. That's what it means. Plugging into the original plan that God has. I mean, don't we all know that God's original plan is the best?
Yes.
There's no way we can improve on God's original plan. Everything that we try to do to improve on that just ends up causing all kinds of trouble. And the only time that we're really free is when we come back to the way God designed it in the first place. And then we suddenly find out, whoa, God knows what He was doing. Right? So if God knows what He was doing, why don't we do it His way? Right? When God gives a person a vision, the vision is the final authority. Listen to this. This is very important. This is important for your family. This is important for your church. This is important for your business. When God gives a person a vision, the vision is the final authority. God will then set out leaders of the vision. So if, let's say for instance, God gives a vision for the church, then everybody has to pull together to make that vision work, or it's not going to work. And so, for instance, with us, God gave us a vision for the ministry. I'm the leader of that vision, but I am still subject to the vision. I can't just go and do all kinds of other stuff that doesn't fit into the vision, or I'm in rebellion to the vision even though I'm the leader. Even the leaders are subject to the vision that God gave them. And when you're doing the vision, when you're plugged into the vision and the vision is coming forth, everybody is safe. Everybody is protected, and everybody can work together in an amazing way, because it's the vision that is flowing down from God and everybody's just flowing with that, and it's like the vision is like the what do you call it, the conductor of an orchestra. You know, the conductor is saying who does what next and things like that. That's what the vision is, that when God gives you a vision and everybody flows with that vision, a beautiful thing comes forth. But if just one person tries to do it and tell everybody else how to do it and stuff like that, you start getting into chaos and conflict, and stuff just starts clashing around and things like that. As long as the leaders connect with and stay submitted to the vision, God will bring others into the vision to participate, benefit, and help to advance the vision. Now, look at the first words there. As long as the leaders connect with and stay submitted to the vision.
Yeah. Wow.
If you don't connect with and stay submitted to the vision, then it becomes a division. Division is, you know, that word di,
Right.
means two. Two visions is division. You have to have one vision in order for it to come forth in the way God designed it to function. When people submit to the vision, their gifts are activated, and the whole community begins to flow together as one to fulfill a greater purpose. And that's beautiful when that happens. When everybody flows together as one to fulfill the purpose, to fulfill the vision, everything begins to align. Submitting ourselves one to another simply means we are coming into agreement with the power of God working through each other and the purposes that God has put into each other's lives. It does not mean that some insecure dictator can now, whoa, I missed some words there, can now what?
Do whatever he wants to do.
Do whatever he wants to do? Yeah, that's true. So, it does not mean that some insecure dictator can now do whatever he wants to do. Because then he's not submitted to the vision, right?
Right.
If we stay in the Spirit and stay submitted to God, we can pray against whatever comes against the vision, and the enemy has to leave because we are submitted to the vision. If we get offended, it allows the enemy to disrupt and destroy the vision. Look at how the enemy works. He tries to get us offended. Instead of, when we're fully surrendered to God, and it's God's vision, then God also protects the vision. But when we get offended, then the enemy can start to disrupt and destroy the vision.
If we get offended, it means that we're holding on to it ourselves. If we're not offended, we're trusting God with it.
And if we bring a situation into the natural realm, then the person with the most physical strength wins. That's why most of the time, if you start looking at things in the natural, you're already losing.
Right.
Because the person with the most physical strength wins in the natural realm. If we keep the situation in the spirit realm, the person with the most spiritual authority wins. That means when you're submitted to the vision, then the vision comes forth. Only by connecting to God's vision can a person have spiritual authority. So, if anybody has any questions, you can email them to asksteveandjake@yahoo.com, and we can discuss them on a future broadcast sometime. And
we're doing an Overcomers course May the 12th to the 16th in Ephrata, Pennsylvania.
And
we have products on the website.
lightofhopeministries.com. The Overcomers course, if anybody's interested, you can go to our website, lightofhopeministries.com, click on the Overcomers page, and you can sign up right there. It's May the 12th. It's a 5-day Overcomers course starting Monday mornings at 8 o'clock, goes to Friday evening.
If you have any questions about your life that you want answered, come to the course.
God bless you.